Senhoras e senhores, a Fundação Getulio Vargas tem a satisfação de recebê-los para mais um evento. Sejam bem-vindos ao auditório do Centro Cultural FGV. Nosso auditório possui rede Wi-Fi, nome e senha da rede, exibidos nos prismas localizados na recepção ou nos telões após este vídeo. Solicitamos que não sejam consumidos alimentos e bebidas no interior do auditório. Solicitamos ainda que os telefones celulares sejam mantidos no modo silencioso e com flashes desativados. Para maior conforto e segurança, fiquem atentos aos procedimentos a serem seguidos em caso de emergência. Nosso auditório está estruturado com 3 saídas de emergência, todas identificadas com placas de orientação e equipadas com barras antipânico. De frente para o palco, temos 2 saídas, uma no lado esquerdo e outra no lado direito. Uma terceira saída de emergência está localizada na parte superior ao fundo do auditório. Os extintores de incêndio estão localizados nas laterais do palco e ao fundo do auditório, um em cada lado, e estão sinalizados conforme as normas internacionais de segurança. Em caso de incêndio, os detectores de fumaça localizados no teto acionam o sistema de alarme e nossa brigada de incêndio, devidamente treinada, entra em ação. Em caso de queda de energia, o grupo gerador será acionado. Vale lembrar que em caso de emergência, os elevadores não devem ser utilizados. E para maior segurança, nosso auditório é monitorado com câmeras de segurança de 24 horas. A Fundação Getulio Vargas, desde já, agradece a presença de todos em nosso centro cultural e deseja a todos os presentes um ótimo evento.
Bom dia, bem-vindos, bem-vindas. Eu sou
Good morning, everyone. My name is Alene Starenberg, journalist associated to the School of Communication, Media and Information of the Getulio Vargas Foundation, and we're very glad to start this event, Artificial Intelligence, Disinformation and Democracy, carried out by ECMI FGV by the Brazil Communication Agency and Knowledge in partnership with the Center of Technology and Society of FGV Law Rio and Democracy Reporting International and the Lupa Agency. The seminar is part of the seminar Media and Democracy with the support of the European Union here in Brazil. We have the presence of distinctive figures, among them the Justice of the Supreme Federal Court, Alexandre de Moraes. He's going to participate online. In a few minutes, we're going to have his speech, and I have the honor of inviting Marianne Graf, Ambassador of the European Union in Brazil, and Carlos Ivan Simonsen Leal, the President of FGV. So please.
Frau Graf, wenn Sie wollen, bitte.
I always follow the president. President of the Getulio Vargas Foundation, Carlos Simonsen Leal. G. Moraes, President of Brazil's Superior Electoral Court, authorities present here today, esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's both a pleasure and a privilege to open today's event on that topic that will shape societies and our ways for life for generations to come. Artificial intelligence, or AI, has emerged as a transformative force, promising unprecedented advancement, from healthcare to transportation, from education to entertainment. AI has woven itself into the fabric of our daily lives, offering innovative solutions and often enough efficiency. However, with great power comes great responsibility. And the intersection of AI, disinformation, and democracy presents complex and pressing challenges. Just last week, with Justice Alexandre de Moraes, the EU delegation and the Brazilian Superior Electoral Court organized the seminar Disinformation in Electoral Processes. We highlighted that information manipulation by internal as well as foreign actors is not only a political but also a security challenge. Add to this the incredible powers of artificial intelligence, and we have a potentially very explosive cocktail. In the age of disinformation, accurate and unbiased data is fundamental to the functioning of democracies. AI, when deployed responsibly, can contribute to this by analyzing vast data sets and providing valuable insights. However, the same technology can be exploited to manipulate public opinion through spread of disinformation and fake news. The use of AI-generated deepfakes and other sophisticated techniques makes it challenging to distinguish between authentic and manipulated content, often mixed together. The blurring of reality erodes public trust in information sources. It creates an environment where democracy suffers. At a EU level, we have started tackling this problem. As stated by the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, at her State of the European Union speech in September, we have a narrowing window of opportunity to guide this technology responsibly. She therefore proposed that the EU and its partners should lead the way on a new global framework for AI, built on 3 pillars: principles, governance, and guiding innovation. Within the first principles pillar, the EU's priority is to ensure AI develops in a human-centric, transparent, sustainable, secure, inclusive, and trustworthy way. This is why the EU put forward the Artificial Intelligence Act, a draft law which is currently in final negotiations, and if approved, it will represent the world's first comprehensive pro-innovation AI law. In the age of information, accurate and unbiased data is fundamental to the functioning of democracies. Therefore, the second pillar is governance. The EU has laid the foundations for one single governance system in Europe. But we should also join forces with our partners to ensure a global approach to understanding the impact of AI in our societies. The third pillar is guiding innovation in a responsible way. Thanks to the EU's investment in the last years, Europe has now become a leader in supercomputing, with 3 of the 5 most powerful supercomputers in the world. These high-performance computers are being opened up to AI startups so that they can test their models. The EU has set a twin objective of building an ecosystem of excellence and an ecosystem of trust in order to allow technological innovation while addressing the risks of AI. We believe that it is possible to strike the right balance between innovation and protection. We also believe that it is a false dichotomy to claim that regulation stifles innovation. Indeed, we believe that good regulation can actually foster innovation. As we confront challenges posed by AI and disinformation, it's imperative to acknowledge the global nature of these issues. International cooperation is not merely a choice, but a necessity. The EU is committed to collaborating with like-minded partners to establish common standards, share best practices, and address challenges posed by emerging technologies. In fact, we hail Brazil's initiative to regulate AI, and we are following closely current discussions in the Senate. Moreover, just a few days ago, the EU delegation to Brazil organized a bilateral dialogue on the regulation of AI in collaboration with the Commission on Communications and Digital Rights of the Senate. We think that such exchange should continue in a joint effort to ensure that AI is a force for good and used responsibly with appropriate guardrails in place. Today's event, organized as part of the Media and Democracy Project, funded by the EU and developed by the Getulio Vargas Foundation in partnership with Democracy Reporting International and Agência Lupa, is part of this effort. Ladies and gentlemen, we stand at a crossroads where the choices we make today will shape the future of our democracies. Only by jointly fostering a culture of responsible AI, we can navigate the challenges posed by disinformation and uphold the principles underpinning our democratic societies. Thank you for your kind attention.
Posso falar em português? Em primeiro lugar, bom dia a todos. É um prazer tê-los aqui. A senhora embaixadora da União Europeia, Mariano Schulgraf, a quem eu conheço há muitos anos. O senhor corregedor do STJ, ministro Felipe Salomão, o nosso procurador
Justice Felipe Salomão,
do Estado do Rio, Dr. Rodrigo Maia, presidente da EBC,
Mr. Rodrigo Maia, the president of RBC, vice director of ABIN,
e mais adiante, não aqui presente, mas estará através de vídeo.
and further ahead, Justice Alexandre de Moraes, who is going to participate via video. This is an interesting moment under all aspects.
O mundo está ficando cada vez mais complicado.
The world is becoming more and more complicated, don't you agree?
Uso interessante, não com sentido de alegria, mas com sentido
It is becoming interesting in the Chinese sense.
você diz possa você viver em tempos interessantes.
When you want to curse someone in China, you say, may you live in interesting times. So we're going to live in more and more interesting times. This has to do with not only AI.
Talvez seja uma lente de aumento,
AI may be
ampliar alguns problemas, mas na verdade tem a ver com a situação
magnifying glass that will magnify some problems, but also has to do with some geopolitical and economic issues,
durante muito tempo.
conditions that were true for a long time and that are not true anymore. Basically, and I simplify a lot because of problems related to relative rhythms of innovation in public finance.
Então, indo para o tema em questão,
So moving forward to the topic in question,
nós aqui na Fundação temos
here at the
trabalhado
Getulio Vargas
bastante
Foundation, we
com
have
a
worked a lot
comunicação. Antes do evento, tem trabalhado bastante com
on
a ideia do
the topic of
que é a repercussão da
what
internet,
is the repercussion of the
o que ela
internet,
está fazendo,
what the internet is actually doing,
o uso da internet para a
how we've been processing the use of the internet for the large-scale communications in this period when, due to the reduction in the cost of diffusion, we have had a brutal change in the market. And I'm not saying only the financial market, but the market and the media market.
O que aconteceu? Nós tínhamos em todos os países mais desenvolvidos.
We had in all of the developed countries a verticalized media where we reduced a lot the cost of diffusion. We started reducing revenue from this media, and the media had to reduce the cost, simplify the structures, and follow the saying of Bernard Shaw, who said that people with high intellectuals talk about ideas, people with average intellect talk about people, and people with average talk about average intellect talk about facts, and people with low intellect talk about people. So trying to niche the revenue, the traditional media left the ideas, moved to facts, and then moved to people. And fake news is nothing more than what we call previously gossip and so on. But the topic today is not discussing fake news. This topic was pretty much discussed, but the topic today is discussing fake news and artificial intelligence. We all saw that it is possible to have a portrait of ourselves transformed into a film by a computer saying things that we absolutely don't agree with. But we could have photographs completely changed, showing things that never happened. We can have plots that are researched in the sense that we study what people would like to hear, and we tell people what they want to hear, but we introduce some nefarious idea in the middle of that speech. And when I talk about a nefarious idea, it's always an idea leading to conflict or leading to agitation among people. And somehow, this has already been done for a few years, very consistently in several parts of the world, and this leads up to artificial intelligence, which is going to make it even cheaper. I would like to make an observation which simplifies very well what we are going to fight against.
Ontem eu estava pouco sem fazer nada de tarde e estava vendo uns documentários no YouTube.
Yesterday afternoon, I was watching YouTube documentaries, and one of them was on sniper trainings, the American Marines. And why was I watching that? I don't know. I was on YouTube and suddenly I saw that and I found it interesting. It was showing a precision weapon that fixed the focus on the person. You can almost see the eye color from 2 kilometers apart. It's brutal. But they were comparing that weapon with an American sniper, and the Vietnam War that was able to stop by himself an attack from the enemies. So they were showing a picture of the the viewer today that is very precise, and the viewer from 60 years ago that was able to see something diffuse. They were able to see the head, but they couldn't see the rest of the body. And a good sniper must shoot in the chest and not in the head because it's much harder and it's not effective. And this example is kind of cruel, but it's important. The person knew that we have in average 36 centimeters from the head to the chest, and that was enough for that sniper. And that person was considered the best snipers in the Mariners. He stopped by himself an attack at Vietnam because he was aware of that. So nowadays we are going to try and regulate the use of of artificial intelligence in several ways, not to allow a greater diffusion, a greater dissemination of fake news. But artificial intelligence is the modern viewfinder, and the sniper only needed to know that he had 36 centimeters. So you're going to make a great effort to control the use of artificial intelligence with fake news, and maybe we should do that. I don't know how much we should do, but you will always have the 36 centimeters that will provide the correct position to the sniper. In the case of Cambridge Analytics, they've shown that focused research are the 36 centimeters that you need to focus on fake news. And the rest is known since the 1930s. You have the use of political marketing with fake news, and even before. So this is a hard struggle, but we shouldn't forget that the world problems are being exacerbated by fake news, are being magnified. They are going to be exacerbated when artificial intelligence is used, integrated with fake news. But fake news are a lever. The problems are coming from this deep change in the world that has to do with productivity, redistribution of productivity in the world, with the competition for natural resources, with public finance, and it's not enough to control the symptom. If the reasons for that fever, of that infection, are still there. This is part of the global context. Artificial intelligence has only one thing wrong, is that it doesn't have an intelligence. They are artifacts and mathematic tools that are very sophisticated, but you don't have cognition in there. Thank God we are not prepared for that. I don't know how fast we are going to get that, but the dispute itself within a company, as we've seen recently with uh, scenes of swords, a company that was invested millions of dollars by other big company. It seems that we are close to this pathway, right? So we are at a crossroad And we have to act, but not only on the symptoms. We have to take care of the cause. We have to prevent fake news. We have to prevent AI being used in fake news. Otherwise, we are going to be hurt. And we must look for the cause concerning regulation of the media market. It could be contained and hampered. The regulation on the dissemination of fake news could be fought. So maybe the right way is not preventing it, because we would be willing to close the holes in the dye. I don't have a pessimistic view. I believe that in the medium run, people are learning about that. So soon, we are going to provide less attention to absurd news. Yesterday, I read 3 of them. I started to check, and the 3 of them were fake. And it was not on politics. Absurd news concerning companies. They were facts that easy to check, but nobody cares about that. But it's very important for us to create this habit. It's hard, but we have to do that. Thank you so much, everyone. I wish you all an excellent seminar today. Thank you, President. Thank you, Ambassador. Let's start with the panel on artificial intelligence and the challenges to democracy in Brazil. We have as members the President of the Supreme Court and Justice of the Supreme Court, Alexandre de Moraes, who is participating online, and maybe he won't be until the end due to his agenda. It's a great pleasure to have you here. We are going to have the Justice of Superior Court of Justice, Luiz Felipe Salomão. Please come to the stage. And I have the pleasure to invite to the stage the President of the National Federation of Institutional Finance and former Speaker of the Lower House, Rodrigo Maia. And we are going to have the General Secretary of the Prosecution, Clarice Calisto, and the President of EBC, the Jean Lima, the Brazilian Company of Communication. Please take your seats. Our discussion will be long, and I hope it's going to be very productive. Welcome, Clarice. Welcome, everyone. Each one of the panel members is going to have some time for their opening remarks, and then we are going to have a round of questions. I will ask you, and also the audience is going to ask you. When we have panels with guests and the audience, they are representing their own opinions and not FGV's opinions, and everyone here agreed to participate in a spontaneous way, and they're authorizing the use of their image that is going to be available at FGV channels. And the topic of this panel is very current, as the President Carlos Ivan and the Ambassador Marianne Schucher have told us. The artificial intelligence is more accessible and more powerful. Sam Altman, the CEO of ChatGPT, he and OpenAI. And before he was fired and reconducted as a CEO, he said that 2023 was the year when artificial intelligence was taken seriously. ChatGPT was emerging 1 year ago, and Altman's saga is iconic. And there's an opinion article on that at O Globo because it's the conflict between the desire to advance and the cautious. Uh, Even if artificial intelligence in general, and singularity, and science fiction topics in which computers are becoming more aware and more intelligent than us, even if it's still distant, AI has brought an evolution that is at our reach. And the technology that is able to generate audios and videos is being used to create contents that are disinforming. So how could artificial intelligence be used in the electoral process? And we had an example in the Argentinian elections this year. How can we prevent the deep fake to confound the the voters, and how can this platform on artificial intelligence can mitigate the harmful impacts in exercising citizenship? So we have here authorities to explore this intersection between AI, disinformation, and our democracy. I have the honor to give the floor to the Justice Alexandre de Moraes. Welcome, good morning. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to greet our mediator, Leila. I'd like to greet the president of FGV, Carlos Ivan, congratulating him for his words, and the ambassador of the European Union. It's a great pleasure, Miriam Shugraf, to be here with you. We had the opportunity to talk about the same issue in the Electoral Superior Court concerning the regulation of Brazil and European Union. I'd like to congratulate my former colleague, Justice of the Superior Court of Justice, Luiz Felipe Salomão. I'd like to greet the former Speaker of the lower house, a friend as well, and President of the National Confederation of Financial Institutions, Rodrigo Amaya, and also Rodrigo Lim, the General Secretary of AGU, Clarice Calisto. I'd like to greet everyone present here, ladies and gentlemen, and I'd like to talk about the great importance of talking about this topic. Here in Brazil, and it's important to highlight that we've had an unprecedented experience in the fight of disinformation. Disinformation attacking democracy, fighting the methods of disinformation. So I would say that only a few countries in the world have had the experience, the practical experience, and has this accumulated experience as Brazil. We learned a lot. We've compared law experiences and political relations as well, but we had an overflow of disinformation, both in the 2018 elections, that used the social media from the big techs, and then in 2020 and 2022. And we were humble enough to learn. The judiciary branch, the electoral court, the general prosecutor, we all had the necessary we had the necessary humility to learn and advance. So in 2020, we were able to advance. In 2022, we had a greater success in this fight, and now we must prepare for a new phase. A new phase, as it was highlighted before, a new phase in fighting against disinformation. Disinformation now in the political world, as an attack against democracy, this disinformation that was enhanced with this unchecked instrument of social media, from now on is gaining a new and problematic factor, which is artificial intelligence. And it's important that we consider, as the president of FGV just commented, that we have to identify the effects and the reasons. Not only the fever, but the cause of the disease. So we have to keep in mind in a clear way that the use of social media to disseminate this information and the possibility now that we verified in the Argentinian elections of this new ingredient, which is artificial intelligence, optimizing this information, it has a cause and an end. So the tools are being perfected. Regretfully, they are improving. It's not that social media is bad and so artificial intelligence is bad. It's not like that, but the harmful use of these instruments has a cause and an end. The cause we identified, and the end is always the same, is to attack democracy, corrupting the pillars of the Western democracies to conquer power in authoritarian regimes and far-right regimes. This is the end. And what generated that, the cause in the past, was the perception that an instrument that was born to enhance democracy, that was born to be used in elections, to call and exercise the right to assembly and free speech in the Arab Springs, the use of social media for political reasons. If we remember that, that started in non-democratic countries that were censoring the press and preventing the freedom of expression, and social media in the beginning were used for the population to gather quickly, to find instruments, democratic instruments. So what some scholars and politicians from the far right and populist politicians, they captured the social media and they started to manipulate this information with instruments that up until then were only used to obtain profit for trade, for economic aspects, and this wild capitalism. Social media and big techs were using algorithms to get new consumers, identifying what that person was looking up in terms of consumption and purchase, what they liked, and the algorithms directed products that were similar to those products that the person were looking for, the people were looking for. So this social media took them to similar products or products that could replace what they were looking for.
obviamente, dos anunciantes dessas big techs, que lamentavelmente
And
até hoje
unfortunately, till this day, these big techs are considered technology companies that profit more from the media than the other media channels. And what started being used via algorithms to form consumption bubbles aiming at the profit was verified at a certain point that the same certain tools could be used to reach political power. A person that consults what they want to purchase also consults papers and news pieces, words that could define this person as a more conservative person or a more liberal person, a progressive person. And from that standpoint, those mechanisms in social media, they started directing that person via algorithm to messages. Initially, true messages to gain that person's trust, and later, a sum of true messages with a false conclusion. We all know that it's possible to build a false narrative, but with true data, manipulation of data, and lastly, they started bombarding these people with ideological messages and especially hate messages, anti-democratic messages against the system to corrupt the democracy from inside. And briefly speaking, that was the path that the social media was used to guarantee a true digital militia or digital militia all over the world to corrupt democracy so that it could be possible for authoritarian regimes and populist regimes to maintain themselves in power. And from that, we could verify the amount of fake videos and fake news, the emergence of experts, the entanglement of true news and fake news. One of the biggest accomplishments of those digital militia was attacking the free press, the traditional media, which is one of the pillars of democracy. They attack this media to compare the population to fake news launched by an influencer, by a pseudo-journalist. And this kind of entanglement made people mistake true news with fake news without any kind of algorithm transparency. These news built bubbles with biased news in order to affect what is most important in a democracy, which is the freedom of choice of the voters. The voters started suffering of true brainwash with fraudulent news, with pseudo-truths that were manipulated to attack their awareness in the moment that they had to choose. This information works illegally and constitutionally. It works in the voters' will. Starting from now, we have a much more dangerous ingredient. Everything that was done before generated this polarization, this hate speech, even with this fight against it, this whole bubble of fake news generated doubts in the population. This panel that we're having here about artificial intelligence showed us that it is possible to substitute this part of my face. It is possible to substitute lip reading and the words in my same tone of voice. And it makes me say things that are absolutely different than the things that I said for real. And to prove that that is a lie, to prove that that was manipulated, to prove that that was a fraud through artificial intelligence, until I prove that that was fake, millions of people will have access to this. This is the great danger. President Ivan Simonson Leal said that fake news is nothing more than an amplification of gossip, and that is true. It is worldwide gossip. It is gossip to millions and millions of people. And that always reminds me, and those who come from a legal background will remember the classic criminal law fundaments when you explain crimes against honor, the offenses against people's honor and dignity. We explain crimes against honor with images. People get feather pillows. They go on top of a tower, they open the pillow, and they shake the pillow, and the feathers, they fly away. The same person runs down the tower and tries to gather all the feathers to try to put them back inside the pillow. They will never be able to put all the feathers back into the pillow. That is the offense that is conveyed. For no matter how accountable you are for the offense, you cannot recover yourself from the offense. You cannot take away the doubt from people that is caused by the offense, let alone that kind of manipulation that was optimized by the digital militia and by social media, let alone with the utilization of fake news. You can imagine how many people will have access to fake videos and fake news through resolutions that are approved by the plenary of TSE last year. On the eve of the election, we were removing in up to an hour those fake news and fake videos from the internet, up to 15 minutes. And up to 15 minutes, we were removing fake news and fake videos from the internet. But you can imagine how many people are going to have access to those fake news with disinformation, but disinformation using a video, using speech with almost certainty of truth. The aggression is very big, especially the aggression with the use of artificial intelligence. It can actually change the result of elections. It can manipulate the result of elections, especially in extremely polarized elections. What can we do then? Where should we advance? I think we should advance in two different points. The first one is in regulation of social media. I have been debating this for a while now. I have been insisting on this topic. In the first semester of this year, the National Congress discussed this topic. The House of Representatives did not approve the urgency later on, but we have to return to this topic, the pressing urgency of a regulation. I usually say that regulation needs only one article. I am a minimalist in this case. We don't have to define what are fake news, because this is impossible. As President Ivan Simonson Leal, it's like a dam where you cover one hole and another hole appears. What you cannot do in the real world, you cannot do in the virtual world. It's very simple. The same responsibility that the media companies have, the big techs will also have. But the big techs are simply deposits of news, articles, information, papers. As they monetize and they earn money from that, as the algorithms direct towards certain news, they're no longer deposits. They are participants of the disclosure of those news, those videos, those papers. And if they economically profit on that, they have to be held accountable for those news so that they can have some self-control. They can have some self-control as they do today regarding pedophilia, child pornography, copyrights. You can imagine a video formatted using artificial intelligence with images of pedophilia. And even if the video is taken down quickly, this affects a campaign of a politician in a deadly way. Due to time restrictions here, it could not be possible to explain this, but in the debates I can clarify it. But the second point in this case, it is not enough to have prevention only or previous regulation or limits. There's the need to have sanctions, severe sanctions, so that those who use artificial intelligence to manipulate the voters' will and to win the elections can know that if they use it and if it is proven, their registration will be seized, their mandate will be seized, and they will become inelectable. I can surely say that the fight against the manipulation by artificial intelligence is very clear. Those who used artificial intelligence for disinformation of voters, those who manipulated videos and audios for disinformation, there's only one sanction possible: seizing their registration and mandate and inelectability, or else crime will pay. A huge fine is not enough. If they reach power, they will not be worried about paying a huge fine. But knowing that they will have their mandate terminated, once it is proven, no matter when it will be proven, if it's before election, their mandate will be terminated or their registration will be terminated if it's before the election. Besides, of course, the criminal sanctions. This is the only legacy that we can leave, so that artificial intelligence does not become a catalyst for disinformation and for the manipulation of the will of the voters, manipulating the results of elections. This is an important moment, and that is why I congratulate FGV for this discussion. This is a very important momentum for this discussion. We put together many work groups to analyze this issue of artificial intelligence. We're going to carry out throughout the first quarter of 2024 major discussions, not only with jurists, political scientists, people in the media, politicians, so that we can regulate within the attributions of the Electoral Superior Court the artificial intelligence for the elections of 2024. We're not going to be naive in thinking that if there's no regulation, those who intend to reach power at any cost will not use their digital militia with this new component of artificial intelligence. So thank you very much for the possibility of reflecting with you upon these issues, and I'm at your availability. Thank you so much.
Ministro, muito obrigada pelas suas palavras.
Justice, thank you very much for your words, completely relevant words for our discussion. Now I'll pass the floor to Justice Luiz Felipe Salomão, please.
Sentado ou em pé, tanto faz.
You can either sit down or stand up, no problem. People think that if I stand up, I'm going to be faster. So first of all, I would like to thank you for the invitation that was made to me by Marco Aurelio, Sydney, Getulio Vargas Foundation, the School of Communication, and I would like to talk about how happy I am to come here and debate such a central topic for democracy. Allow me also to greet President Carlos Ivan Simonsen Leal, and on his behalf, greet everybody who is here taking part in this wonderful event. I would like to say that it's always great lesson learned and a pleasure to take part in an event with the Justice of the Supreme Federal Court, Justice Alexandre de Moraes. He was one of the main guarantors of the democratic process and the democratic periods that we had. His participation, as it was mentioned, was paramount for us to have the elections that we had, such transparent and smooth elections, and he has demonstrated in the Supreme Federal Court a guarantor of the democratic rule of law, and being by his side in this event is a great reason of satisfaction. I would also like to greet Leila, my great friend and former president of the House of Representatives, Rodrigo Maia, who is also a fighter for democracy, president of EBC, Jean Lima, and Dr. Clarice, secretary of AGU, the General Lawyer's Office of Federal Government. My debate will pretty much focus on the research that we have carried out in the foundation, having as a theme democracy and the guarantee of the democratic rule of law. These researches are available on our website, and the QR code is circulating around the auditorium. I'm going to talk about two of them to stimulate the debate that will follow. But before I do that, I would like to mention a little bit the topic that Justice Alexandre de Moraes referred to in his speech. At TSE, the Electoral Superior Court, we had this surprise during the 2018 elections with the explosion of social media during the campaign and the use of tools, not only artificial intelligence, but also the massive triggering of messages and other tools where the political debate was transferred from the demonstrations on the streets to social media.
período da propaganda
we used to talk about this electoral period for political advertisement on TV and radio, but now everything is concentrated on social media. So adding to what Alexandre de Moraes just said, with his experience, and I also had an experience as an inspector, so we worked together for many attacks against the electronic ballot box to control all the activity that was being used on social media. And there we had a very important decision that was to demonetize these websites that were producing fake news on electronic ballot boxes. It was an innovative decision confirmed by the plenary session of the Electoral Court. And from this experience emerged what Alexandre de Moraes just said, the need to regulate social media and the use of this tool with algorithms through social media. Because it's unanimous today, this idea that the business model of these platforms, and this is the core point of this issue, the business model is creating bubbles and trolls. And we're seeing that in practice. And they're obtaining this polarization to get more profit. If there's no polarization, there's no income for the networks. When I talked to them, they themselves said that they desired this regulation to be able to self-regulate, because in many countries we see this regulation in force, and from then they are able to act. What's happening in satellite countries is that the platforms are not doing their homework. They are not self-regulating as they do in some countries where they demand that. So we must seriously think about regulating social media. Today, it is sad that the regulation shouldn't focus on specific points. We should regulate the algorithm itself. And this is the idea that we must develop. And this algorithm must be more transparent. So different issues that are going to be included in this debate during this day. This is a very interesting event organized by Marco Aurelio. I'm going to be brief, and I'm going to speak about two research studies in this set of research studies that our center has been conducting in an autonomous and independent way. Why do we have a center, a hub about that in Getulio Vargas Foundation? To be able to have freedom, so that this is not an official index. We have independent auditors who are able to check the pros and cons in the research studies we conduct so that we can have flexible studies. So I have the honor to coordinate this center with Sydney and the Special Justice Elton, and we are able to carry on with some research studies. And I'd like to outline the first one. The first is concerning the mapping of artificial intelligence used by the courts in our country. As we know, we have 87 courts, counting the regional ones, the labor ones, the electoral ones, military ones. And within these 87 courts, 47 in 2020 used artificial intelligence with three aspects. We are in the third report of this research study. It's an endless research, in fact, because every time that we conduct new research or we create new mechanisms, we have to update them. We also work in our center with two technical nodes, but in 2020, 47 cores were using this tool. And we divided this use in three groups. The first one is the use of artificial intelligence for the administration, helping the middle activity of the judiciary branch, generating financial resources and personnel. Only 3 initiatives are in this group. The second group, that is the great majority, we have tools that were basically created by the courts themselves. They are not outsourced. So in this second group, we have it related to the automation of the processing flows and the executive activities, screening the processes. And the third group has only 7 initiatives, and it uses the tool for decision drafts. And the fourth group is related to conflict resolution, and they use the tool to mediate and for conflict resolution. And 3 systems use this tool in this way. So as I've said before, in 2022, we are in the report of the third phase, where we were able to investigate based on Resolution 332 from CNJ, and we're inspecting aspects on ethics, transparency, and governance in the use of artificial intelligence within the judiciary branch. So we have 2 initiatives that I'd like to highlight from all the others that I just mentioned. So if you want to delve deeper, you can visit our website on the Research Center on Judiciary Innovation from FGV, and you will be able to better understand the analysis of all these systems. And in the case of the Supreme Court, we have a tool called RAFA 2030, and it's able to search in the decisions that are submitted to the Supreme Court all of the items based on semantics that are concerning the Agenda 2030 for the Sustainable Development, the UN agenda. So it's a very interesting tool because it's directing the functioning of this system for the 2030 agenda. And in the case of Amazonas state, they have a robot called TIC, and it's able to search for the predatory demands and the fraudulent demands where the judiciary branch is used for this app. So, as I've promised before, briefly, the second research study I'm referring to is about content moderation on social media. This content moderation, its analysis was made based on the decisions of the Superior Court of Justice and the decisions made up until now, and what was the direction of the decisions. This research study was made in partnership with ANP, Jus Brasil, and IDP, and is still being built. We make available many research notebooks, and this one is being put together, and we must deliver shortly. We had 191 decisions analyzed, where almost 60 of them are concerning directly this topic. Basically, and there's another detail, we also got this historic analysis, and we observed that these demands are substantially growing in terms of special appeals. And most of them were presented by private individuals, and they are trying to remove content from social media. What means that there's no control based on self-regulation. Therefore, we've noticed these 60 special appeals. We verified who the authors were, basically private individuals. Who are the defendants? Normally Facebook, Yahoo, Terra, Mercado Livre, and we analyzed all of the demands, and then we verified that moral damage is a secondary issue. The content removal is the most important part of the request that is analyzed by the courts. And concerning the fundaments of the request, most of them is concerning the damage to the honor and image of the individual. So that was the result of the research study. I wanted to stimulate the debate by adding to the ideas brought by Justice Alexandre de Moraes, and I'd like to thank you for listening to me. Thank you. Thank you so much, Justice. I'm going to give the floor to the next speaker, Rodrigo Maia. Yes, you may speak standing or seated. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to thank Ricardo and Marco Aurelio for the invitation. I'd like to greet Clarice concerning the Federal Attorney General's office. I'd like to congratulate her work and Justice Messia's work with dialogue, transparency, and the possibility of establishing a deeper conversation. I'd like to greet Jean, Leila, and my friends Justice Alexandre de Moraes and Justice Felipe Salomão. I'd like to talk about my experience as a guinea pig in the beginning of 2019. Some of you were here when we discussed about the pension and social security, and when I came back to Brasilia, I was surprised with the amount of attacks that I was suffering. And from then on, history tells us about what happened concerning disinformation in Brazil. From 2018, at least in the political world, it seemed to be an efficient use by the Bolsonaro group to use WhatsApp message, and it became clear that it was much more than that. They were using disinformation. But I'm going to look up my notes here, but last week that happened. I said, that person made Brazil be delayed for 2 years, and that's what I heard, because social media disinformation targeted me, and that contaminate people's mind, and you're unable to remove that from their minds. If it weren't for the electoral court work led by Justice Alexandre de Moraes, many people who were considered enemies by them couldn't walk on the streets. I was attacked many times, for instance, in Bahia in the end of 2022, and it's very impactful because it seems to be a guerrilla that is forming around you. People thought you, and you cannot do anything because someone is filming. You cannot react forcefully. So, in fact, is a very important topic that we should face so that democracy can respond. And I think that Justice Alexandre's response is very right. These are two important topics: how to regulate the topic of fake news and how to regulate artificial intelligence. And the Senate has a project for that. I'm going to organize my thoughts, and this is a topic that has been debated intensively all around the world concerning disinformation and the impact of artificial intelligence, with the dominant concern is that the artificial intelligence can potentialize existing problems such as the use of bots, fake profiles, and echo chambers, which are social media algorithms that are intensifying disinformation, filtering contents that are reinforcing current beliefs so that people are more exposed to these kind of opinions. So the use of generative artificial intelligence, this artificial intelligence that is creating data in the format of text, videos, and so on, could bring new challenges such as the deep fakes. But the manipulation of propaganda and the echoing chambers are not the only problems. Artificial intelligence can interfere in other aspects of electoral politics. For instance, surveillance and privacy. With the advance of artificial intelligence, the surveillance capacity increases from government and private individuals that could bring to an erosion of privacy and data collections without consent, affecting freedom of expression and potentially influencing the electoral choices. So it's important to mobilize to protect activists from this type of illegal monitoring, as we've seen in a lab from the University of Toronto, with transparency and responsibility. There's a great demand in terms of transparency and responsibility with the use of artificial intelligence in electoral campaigns, and that includes questions such as who is using artificial intelligence to what end and with what type of regulation. So we are seeing proposals of self-regulation by the industry, and we are being led to this pathway. Our artificial intelligence may be used to generate and fight disinformation, and how much is technology enabling the dissemination of fake news? A lot, but it also offers tools to detect and silence illegal content. So it seems to me to be something critical. An interesting case was the recent public call presented by Public Citizens NGO. This request is to clarify that the law against the fraudulent representation is applied to electoral deceiving campaigns generated by artificial intelligence that enables the regulation to deal with deep fakes in political campaigns that could generate audio or videos which are fake and convincing, deceiving the voters. The first claim concerning this subject was rejected by FEC, voted 3 against 1, and the reasons for the rejections concerning the authority of FAC on regulating content generated by artificial intelligence and the lack of specific regulation for that amendment. The new petition is approaching these concerns and mentions Article 11 from SFR that is dealing with fraudulent representation, and the public citizens is urging FAC to provide clear guidelines and author regulations to guarantee that the fraudulent content with artificial intelligence is covered in the law, existing law against fraudulent representations.
De inteligência artificial, importante think tank voltado exclusivamente para garantir que o impacto social.
An important think tank focused on guaranteeing that the impact of artificial intelligence is positive, joining big companies in the area of technology, manifested in favor of the FEC regulation. But a problem is, what model of regulation is efficient? To answer this question, a piece of data that has to be taken into account is the technical asymmetry between regulated and regulatory body. The regulated entity tends to have a limited knowledge, while every regulatory body knows about the regulations and better technical expertise. Doesn't seem that there is instances in the regulatory bodies that dominate the fundamentals of this technology and the nuances of its operation in a sufficiently deep level to guarantee a more robust regulatory framework. The path seems to be a more modest regulation. As an example of what happens now in the United States, debating the abolition of generative artificial intelligence with fraudulent representation of candidates, even though artificial intelligence tools could be used in daily activities like writing a speech. The role of the electoral justice and the Congress is understanding what kind of rule will be efficient to protect the electoral process without generating surreal intentions. Besides debating the risks, it will be paramount to understand how artificial intelligence could improve our democracy, fighting disinformation and detecting the irregular use of its tools, collaborating to a better transparency of the electoral process and the resources involved in it, and so on. Thank you very much. Thank you, President. I would like to pass the floor to the General Secretary of the Federal Attorney General's Office, Clarice Calisto. Thank you very much to the Getulio Vargas Foundation. It's an honor for the Federal Attorney General's Office to be in an event of this kind. Thank you very much to Justice Alexandre Moraes for being here. I would like to greet him. And the Supreme Federal Court is a partner of ours in the defense of democracy. I start my speech with this point. I would like to greet Rodrigo Maia, the president of CNF. As he said, we have had a very deep dialogue on the topic of the legal security and business. AGU created this year a chamber of the political security and business. I am residing this chamber. President Rodrigo Maia is part of our chamber of legal security. Jean Lima is my dear friend as well. We are together imagining new paths for public communication, new technical and legal paths to build new solutions and think about new ways of working on public administration in Brazil. And from this topic of artificial intelligence, I came here very excited to talk about this because I take care of this artificial intelligence topic at the Federal General Attorney's Office. Today, we have an especially interesting challenge nowadays because AGU is very big. We are the biggest Attorney General's office in the world. We have 12,000 professionals, 8,000 public attorneys. We have attorneys in every entity of the public power nowadays. We have a system of legal intelligence. Our electronic system is called Sapiens, and we have 2 billion documents in our system. We have millions of court summons, and our avant-garde court summons has always been a challenge. This is already being implemented in AGU. Dialoguing with Justice Barroso, he's our new STF Justice. He said that one of the most interesting avant-garde techniques that we've been using is at the Federal Attorney's Office and AGU. And I've been discussing the generative artificial intelligence, discussing the relevance of talking about a multi-cloud model, the logics of structuring assistance of artificial intelligence for our work that do not need one or another supplier. This is the key discussion for us. Right now, we are modeling and experiencing ways of modeling artificial intelligence in our system without the need for one or another supplier. From the standpoint of knowledge management and wording of texts, the world knows the potential of generative AI. I am an administrative council of BNDES, and I have been to a workshop of artificial intelligence 2 weeks ago. We had director of OECD, Andrew Winkoff, and he was saying that from the most recent studies on where we are having gains in productivity, substantial gains of productivity in the world, in the sectors of economy per type of work, in all of empirical studies, it says that the writing of texts, the gains with generative artificial intelligence are extremely important. These are sectors with huge leaps. And curiously, I'm not sure if it's ironic, but the work of programming, writing codes, is extremely modified from the standpoint of gains of productivity. So the debate that we have when we think about public power is how can we therefore use this gain of productivity in a sustainable way? The ambassador earlier made an incredible speech about the size of the responsibility. It's very good to listen to the position of the European Union on this sense. This places us with the size of Brazil in a very interesting place while thinking about artificial intelligence, how we're going to use the public power of Brazil with the size and intensity as we have. For me, it's very clear we have to debate the human supervision very carefully. The bias of algorithmic racism. We've had empirical evidence in a country like Brazil where racism marks all of our sociability and the way that we structure our power structures. That is extremely delicate. I'm not going to go into this topic in detail. I would like to focus more on some state-of-the-art topics that are concerning us today, especially in the public power debate. We cannot think about artificial intelligence outside the topic of climate emergency. All of the requirements of generative artificial intelligence, and we talk about artificial intelligence in our space as a public power, in the legal world, which is very analog, still in the process of digital transformation. But in this process of digital transformation, we use automation a lot. And many times we have actors that did not notice what we are talking about, why AI exploded now as a debate. Generative intelligence is incomparable to what we have lived so far in terms of automation. And we're talking about a leap in paradigm. It's a truly disruptive paradigm. It's a fashionable word, but it applies to what we're living in terms of how the economy works and what we will live in the next few years. In this scenario, the level of demand per processing grew and is growing, and it tends to boom in the next year. That means an energy expenditure that we have to debate more in times of climate emergency. The maintenance of data centers that can handle the use of generative AI with it becoming popular, it's something gigantic for the world. And we can compare it to Brazil. Our energy matrix is very clean. We can place ourselves as possible destinations for the deployment of data centers for these companies. This is an interesting business for us, Brazil. We are debating this in BNDES and the Administration Council. So we have a very interesting set of challenges when it comes to artificial intelligence and the public power. In AGU, we are already using a very powerful assistant of artificial intelligence with excellent results for knowledge management. I was listening to Justice Salomon talking about screening. We always used automation for screening at AGU, and that gave us lots of productivity gain in the last few years.
Nos mostrou é que vai ser elevado à enésima potência.
Our experimental use of AI showed us that this is going to be elevated. We're not substituting attorneys' workforce, but in knowledge management, in the modeling that we already have in our system of legal intelligence, we have our assistant as co-pilot. It is effectively a co-pilot that can handle me a correct labeling that directs the work. I'll wrap it up here so we can listen to the debate. I finished my contribution moving towards the defense of democracy.
Nossos 30 anos, da celebração dos 30 anos, a AGU...
And we have as the motto for our 30th birthday, AGU in service of the democracy and the public power. The role of AGU is being in service of transforming processes. And that is why we are debating the democracy today. We are having our democratic institutions under risk. We have the Secretariat of Digital Policies. We have this National Institute of Digital Rights within the Federal Attorney General's office. So I think the seminar comes in a good time. The digital agenda is in the center of the democratic issue today. And AGU is today attentive to the size of the problem and the size of the size of the responsibility, because with great powers come great responsibilities, as the ambassador said today. The Brazilian democracy has great responsibilities. Count on the Federal General Attorney's Office. I say this to FGV, I say this to all of the authorities that are here present. And Justice Salomão, I'm going to talk to you about your research because I was very interested. Thank you very much. Thank you, Secretary Clarice. Last but not least, President of EBC.
Bem, bom dia a todos e a todas.
Good morning, everyone. I would like to greet everyone who is here, everyone who is following on the YouTube of FGV Brazil. It's a great satisfaction to have this partnership with FGV. Thank you very much, Professor Carlo, Marco, and everyone who is here today. I would like to greet Justice Alexandre de Moraes for the great work that he has done heading the STE and STF. I would like to greet Justice Salomão, President Rodrigo Maia, Secretary Clarice, who has helped us a lot in EBC, and Leila, who is mediating our debate. I would also like to thank the two members of our board, Antonio Pellegrino, our Director of Information and Content, and Nicole, who will later participate in the panel, and our Superintendent of Digital Media. I would like to divide my speech in 2 points. I would like to contextualize first EBC on the context of crisis, institutional and political crises from the last 6 years until now. This is a topic where we approach democracy and communication. Communication was a very affected topic. And then I would approach specifically the topic of artificial intelligence and disinformation. In the last 4 years, media in Brazil suffered several attacks. The means of communication were target of conspiratory theories, and journalists, especially women, suffered constant harassment as a way of intimidation. At EBC, workers, both men and women, reported cases of censorship. The public means of press were forbidden of approaching sensitive topics like Marielle Franco, human rights, indigenous issues, conflicts in the country, military dictatorship, among other topics. When we took over the direction of EBC this year, we found a challenging situation. The company was victim of attacks, and it reflected the political excesses lived by the country in the previous years. The political and institutional crisis that the country lived since 2016 had reflections in its administration. Now we are concentrated and working on reconstruction to reestablish the public communication in Brazil. Created in 2008, it is a very recent company, and EBC has about 1,500 employees. We are headquartered in Brasília, São Paulo, Rio de Janeiro, and Maranhão. We aim at fulfilling the mission of the company, being a strong tool of communication as established by our Constitution that predicts the complementarity of the public, state, and private systems. In some remote areas of the Amazon region, for example, we're the only means of communication. And in the middle of this reconstruction process of EBC, our first mission today was making the company resume its operation in 2 systems, the public and the state systems. In July, we launched the network, completely dedicated to the activities of the executive power, made up of the channels of television Gov and the news agency Gov agency, and also two other TV channels, Education Channel and the Health Channel.
Aos meios de comunicação
Well,
públicos,
in what concerns the public communication means, ABC is administrating EBC Brazil, Agência Brasil, and 7 radio stations, including the national radio and also the station from the Ministry of Culture. And we created also the national network of public communication that is among the 5 greatest TV outlets in the country. It's comprised by public and university outlets providing culture and information to millions of Brazilians. On October 17, we had the greatest expansion in the history of public network in an event in the headquarters of the government. We had an agreement between ABC and the Federal Educational Institution and 32 federal universities to operate 73 new TV and radio outlets. With this new concession, the Ministry of Communications has doubled the size of the network. Besides the 32 universities and 41 radio stations in the network, soon on December 6, we are going to sign new agreements with federal institutes, strengthening even more the expansion of the public and educational and university network. And the objective of this initiative is to enhance the access of population to through national content that are credible and trustful. So we are signing agreements with 39 new municipalities, and the next step will be with Agruem, the Association of Deans in state and municipal universities in the country, so that we can move on with this expansion that is coordinated by the Secretariat of Communication, headed by João Brante and Otávio. EBC is supporting the partners with engineering projects and introduction in the ministries to make the network effective. And we've been working according to the President Lula request in the internationalization of the Brazil network. And it was discontinued before this initiative. The International Brazil TV was being broadcast in 66 countries in all the continents. We created this work group, and we are going to restart with this project in 2024, re-implementing this network at international level. The main mission of EBC is to create and disseminate contents that will contribute to the critical thought in the society. We maintain in our guidelines the values of credibility, high quality, and respect to the exercise of citizenship. Our purpose of making public communication, we defend a project to consolidating companies as a reliable source of information in sync with the best practice of journalism. The democracy demands that the freedom of speech is defended. The access to communication means is crucial in a democratic society that is based on human rights. The freedom of press is a right for all collectivity. We must create regulations that will guarantee diversity and promote the democratization of the media. Concerning the topic of artificial intelligence, we must highlight that as a communication company, we are following up the technological developments, understanding its potential. The several studies and new apps with the use of artificial intelligence for the journalism are pointing to important potentials of this technology, the positive side of using artificial intelligence. The ability to process a great amount of data and continuously learning give an important tool for journalists to perform their repetitive tasks. And it also points to errors and disinformation, helping to verify the content, and also creating this broad database that could help decision makers and professionals. Of course, we understand that the technology must be used only as a complementary tool, never replacing the fact survey and human creativity, but it's healthy to understand its relevance in the journalism to produce audio and video tools. The dissemination of disinformation in digital platforms is the great challenge. At ABC, we work to fight disinformation. We are looking for a reference journalism against fake news. We have shows that are supporting the debate on the topic on social media and in our outlets. And it's crucial to have this substantial change in legislation finding solutions for this topic. Is the role of the state to monitor and inspect the use of artificial intelligence. Although this technology is a great advancement, as we've shown before, its bad use could represent a menace to democracy, to constitutional guarantees of citizens, and public interest. And the objective is to regulate behaviors, opinions, and the decision-making of citizens. That couldn't happen. So we must reflect upon measures to protect the integrity of information and also to protect the population against manipulation, maintaining the fundamental principles of democracy and promoting the responsibility at the digital era. We must institute local governments instruments at national and international level with reliable tools to deal with a great volume of information to generate knowledge and contribute to the public debate using artificial intelligence techniques that could consider relevant challenges applied to the public and private sectors, foreseeing the social participation as a method to effectivate this broad, plural, and representative governance. Last, the fast pace of this technological advance is reviewing the future, establishing a normative architecture for the knowledge society, preserving the right to information, the access to audiovisual content for journalism or digital uses, without breaching the rule of law, respecting the freedom of speech and human dignities and popular knowledge. So I'd like to thank you for the partnership, and I'm available for the debate. Congratulations. Thank you, President. The Justice Alexandre de Moraes had to leave. We knew about that, and Rodrigo Maia will have to leave as well. Next time we are going to ask you. Since we are a little late, we won't have time for many questions, but Justice Luiz Felipe Salomão, we've seen supporters of the elected President Javier Milei in Argentina producing a fake video in which Sergio Massa seemed to be disoriented, and in another one he was using cocaine, and those images went viral at the eve of the election, this polarized election, and artificial intelligence can potentialize fake news. So it's a core issue, we've mentioned that, and we must hold the the digital platforms accountable, as Justice Alexandre mentioned as well. And this is the object of the Bill of Law on Fake News, but also actions at the Supreme Court dealing with Article 19 of our Internet legal framework. This article that is inspired in the US legislation and that enables the dissemination of undesired contents. How do you see this discussion and what are the agile pathways to pacify this issue in the Congress or in the judiciary? You should have asked an easy question, right, Leila? I think this is a delicate topic, and it's hard at the same time. We don't have an easy solution because this question can be seen from different perspectives. Firstly, the use of artificial intelligence to produce fake news is only another tool with which we have to deal. Because as I've said before, we have other uses with other tools that the electoral court had detected, and we started to work with that since that election when social media was galvanizing attentions so that we could have a balanced election with elevated level of debate. And that must come from the platforms themselves as well in this joint work. Because as I said before, the business model is not stimulating the solution, but the platforms can self-regulate for that. So I believe that the electoral court is treading this pathway and is determining the content removal instantaneously under penalty of being fined, working fast to prevent the fake news. So we are going to perfect ourselves at each election. Concerning Article 19, this is a reason for concern because there's a platform comfort zone. The thesis is that they are only removing content when there's this judicial order. And what's happening now demands more. There are many countries regulating this work, and that enables the big companies who deal with the functioning of social media to also have their share of responsibility. And we are able to do that because when we have some topics dealt, they are able to remove the post automatically or the website. For instance, when it's a matter of pedophilia or suicide, in these cases, they are able to automatically remove the content, the platform itself. So it's feasible, and we can be faster in this self-regulation. And I also believe that we should have state regulation. If it's better to be done through the Supreme Court or through the Congress, I have no doubt that this is a matter for the Congress. The Congress should surpass this barrier. They're trying to divide the bill in order to pass, but the Supreme Court will have to pronounce itself, and then people will complain about this judicial activism, but it's overdue, this issue. It should be regulated. So these are the considerations I'd like to include here. Thank you, Justice. I would like to ask a question to Clarice. Clarice, this Bill of Law 2630 was almost voted in May. It was removed from the agenda by the rapporteur Orlando Silva. We know that our right parties were exercising their pressure. We had the issue of big tax, and an investigation was opened to investigate what the Speaker of the House, Arthur Lira, called an abusive performance. And I talked to the rapporteur, Orlando Silva, and he explained me about the process, about dividing the Bill of Law, about the remuneration of the press by the platforms that went to this different Bill of Law. And from the rapporteur perspective, he said it's not enough to curb this content if you're not holding the platform responsible. He believes that it only makes sense that if it goes hand in hand with voting the two bills at the same time, for instance. So how is the Attorney General's office following up that? We have a role in the executive power that is very present. Every time that a draft of decree or provisional measure or bill of law is sent, we have this active work in this construction. In the case of this bill of law, it was one of the priorities at the beginning of the administration, elaborating contributions. 2630 was in the Congress for a long time. Today, the government is constantly dialoguing with the National Congress concerning this topic over this year, and it's very hard. If it were an easy topic, we would have many legislations approved all around the world. We have attempts. We have normative acts that are enacted and were a basis for this government were the acts by the European Union. They are very advanced norms, and they are a reference for the great debates, especially with the two big secretariats, the digital rights and communications. From the Congress standpoint, I would say that this is a subject for the Institutional Relations Secretariat, because the scenario today won't be the same tomorrow. So it's hard for us to have a stance concerning Congress strategy. Minister Padilla is always speaking to the Congress. He's very present, and the Attorney General's office is providing support to any legal doubt or any new systematic. From the perspective of the defense of democracy, we are working with the legal frameworks that exist. So we've been very successful in our measures and actions. We've been working with caution. Our prosecutor office is doing this careful work. We have conducted a lot of debate with society because this topic is very easy to simply declare they're willing to have censorship. But the legal argument is that there's collective dimension on freedom of expression. The society has the right to be well informed. In the international law, it's in the conception of freedom of expression. So all the time we must be very careful not to promote censorship, not to curb individual expression, but we must be careful with this collective expression as well, the collective dimension of this topic. Thank you. President Jean Lima, we have some issues concerning journalistic companies. One is this remuneration of its content from big techs, and I'd like to remind you that Google just closed a deal with the government of Canada concerning that, and also in Australia we've seen something similar. So is this a trend? And I'd like to mention that it's not possible to curb information without valuing who is producing information, as Rapporteur Orlando Silva has mentioned. Since we're talking about artificial intelligence, great newspapers such as Washington Post and New York Times, and also Global Editor, and the Financial Times, they do not allow artificial intelligence generative AI has access to content, because ChatGPT uses the information from the internet and is sucking the information that was produced by press bodies where the journalist has worked with. So as a president, how do you position yourself?
A gente primeiro teve que estamos num processo de
As
reestruturação.
I mentioned in my speech, we are first in the process of restructuring.
Os canais. A gente tinha canal que prestava serviço para o governo e também
We had a channel
público. Então, nós somos dos poucos
that
TV aberta que transmite programação infantil e a criança estava vendo desenho, de repente entrava.
we created 2 channels.
Gestão anterior, ato de militares, uma formação.
We had a children's channel that was interrupted by protests of military people. Our perimeters are different than the private perimeters.
Colocou isso claramente. Quando uma empresa recebe recurso, ela não só mais
When a company receives resources, it contributes to the decision of that content.
Criar dentro das redes sociais uma diferenciação do que conteúdo nocivo, como a pedofilia, é possível também criar parâmetros para diferenciar.
Hazardous content like pedophilia can also influence contents of disinformation or content focused on content on prejudice. So we have to have this moral and ethical aspect on the content that is shared on social media.
Presidente, obrigada. Queria só avisar que a gente deve ir até 12:30, dado o adiantado da hora, mas acho que ainda dá tempo de eu trazer mais umas perguntinhas. Ministro Salomão, a gente, além dos projetos de lei que estão na Câmara, a gente tem...
Justice Salomão, besides the projects, the bills of law that we have in the Chamber of Representatives, so we have a Bill of Law 2338 that has to do with artificial intelligence that we have in the Senate. And this regulation of artificial intelligence specifically is a concern all over the world, as the ambassador said. We have the Artificial Intelligence Act that is about to be approved in the European Union, and there's a discussion about the foundational models and a series of legal discussions. Here in Brazil, this matter started being appreciated in the Chamber of Representatives, the House of Representatives. There was a commission of jurists with the presence of the Justice of STJ, Vilas Novas Cuevo. Very good work was carried out by the jurists. Now we have a new bill of law by Senator Rodrigo Pacheco. Representative Orlando Silva thinks that there should be a substitute to the text of the House of Representatives. Actually, it's a legislation that is ongoing, and I would like to know, what is your expectation in the sense, and to what extent we will have a legislation, and to what extent several matters will end up in the judiciary, since many subjects end up moving faster than the work of the legislators. Thank you very much for the questions. I followed a little bit the commission of jurists that were directed by Justice Cueva. They really did present a very interesting bill of law, and then I distanced myself a little bit from the parliamentary transactions. The idea was that any regulation would not stop innovations because it wouldn't be able to anyway. As you said, the evolution of the scenario is much faster than we are able to imagine or predict. The idea is to have a generic regulation to allow for the adaptations, especially as part of the judiciary. Now, in parallel, we have a challenge I had the honor to be assigned as the coordinator of jurists that update the civil code. And this commission is working intensively. The civil code is a document that is very advanced for the time that it was discussed, debated, and then promulgated 20 years ago. But it was discussed for many years in the parliament, almost 30 years. So the delay of this text is very big. That is why the Senate and Chairman Pacheco put together this commission of jurists. And one of our concerns, as I could notice from the work that we have developed, is the digital rights section, the protection of data and the intercommunication of digital rights and the advancement of several topics related to civil rights, like contracts and heritage, digital heritage, as we call it nowadays, and so on and so forth. We have so many topics in this new arrangement, like family rights, civil capacity that suffers the impact of the new technologies. So I think the big revolution that the humankind had, among many others that were important milestones and are recognized by history, I think as time goes on, we're going to notice that this revolution of technology now is the most relevant of all of them. This revolution of communication, this instant communication, the Internet of Things. Nowadays, you have plotters that produce assets as you determine them immediately, like buildings. We don't know what is the duration of this transition phase, but the idea is that any legislation that will approach this subject, including this proposal of updating the civil code, the idea is to have a chapter to approach digital rights with general rules that can be used by the other sections that will not impact the projects that are already ongoing and that regulate in a deeper way these systems, among them artificial intelligence. Thank you very much, Justice. I would like to ask a complementary question to Clarice and Jean. Experts point out that besides regulating the big techs, this concern with the deep fake goes through the education of the population. And we have a population that is learning how to separate oil from water and identify what is fake news. Maybe this process is just beginning, but there should be a mediatic education for people to be able to differentiate what is authentic and what is fake. So how concerning and how serious do you think this is? And for Jean, what is the role of the communication means in learning how and in helping how to educate these people? The topic of mediatic education is very central all over the world. And the central government, there was a directorate that was created only for this. There was a debate on the governmental transition, and the partnership is with the Ministry of Education, and it has to do with the revolution of journalism. Journalism has always been, in modern times, in the structure of the Western democracy, journalism has always been central. The construction of what is real, the possible narratives of what is real, were shared, minimally shared narratives. We are in a level of defragmentation and distortion of what is real, which makes the debates detached from the experience of those who are very distant from professional journalism. I think mediatic education goes through the role of traditional journalism and the approximation of our society with debating the topics in a healthier way than they are debated today. So in terms of public policies, we are now in a public government that is very concerned with this. It's good that we can be optimistic. Thank you, Secretary. President Jean. It's very important to have this question because before the social media, we had means of communication that had the truth in their hands. Social media pulverized this. Now we have content producers. And we have more trouble checking what is true or not. I think this is our role as a public company, strengthening journalism, having two modes where journalism can help fact-checking. Professional journalism has to reestablish itself and keep up with the speed of information nowadays. Of course, the role of education. When we were children, we remembered that there should be financial education, and we never heard about this. And now we're moving back to it. There are generations being educated by the digital environment. I have two children that are educated by the digital environment, and we need the schools and institutions to be involved in this process. Our strategy of expansion of the network is focused specifically on institutions of research and universities. We have to strengthen research and science as a way to strengthen communication further ahead. With this, we create capillarity, we get closer to society, and we give this scientific characteristic to information and content, which I think it's another way to overcome the difficulties. Thank you very much. Before we finish, I'm going to, since we're talking about mediatic education, I'm going to deliver to you a book that was produced by the Education, Media and Communication School of FGV on behalf of the directors. Thank you very much for your participation. I would like to also thank those who had to leave, Rodrigo Maia and the Justice Alexandre de Moraes. At 2 p.m., we're going to have the panel Risks of New Technologies for the Contemporary Democracy, which is a continuation of our debate, which is so rich, and we can have so many developments. Thank you so much.